Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Amit, and in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we're going to talk about 10 things that I absolutely hate about my hair transplant. Now, for those who know me, this video might come as a shock to you, as you know that I've already gone for not one, but 2 hair transplants in the past 2 years, and I've basically gotten back my hair as well as my confidence because of those hair transplants. And don't get me wrong, I love the fact that I went for it, and I love the fact that I look like this now compared to how I used to look, although there are certain things that I absolutely hate going through when I got my hair transplants. I thought I'd share that here as well for people who are considering getting a hair transplant or have just gotten one and are wondering what to expect. So let's dive into the list. First thing that I absolutely hate about getting a hair transplant is the fact that you have to sleep in a very awkward position for at least a week and a half after your procedure. Now, this is pretty well known that when you do get a hair transplant, generally the clinics and doctors recommend you sleeping in an upright position and in 45 degrees angle, just to make sure your donor area and your scalp are not touching your pillows as you sleep, as it can potentially damage the newly transplanted hairs, as well as cause some irritation to your donor area. Another reason why clinics and doctors also recommend you sleeping that way is that it helps control post-surgical swelling and improves the healing process as well. And again, it's not ideal position because it is the most uncomfortable feeling to be able to be sleeping upright in bed for at least a week and a half. I wasn't a big fan of sleeping in this position, but I knew I had to do it. And what helped significantly was getting the right travel pillow on my neck to be able to sleep well with it. I got this travel pillow from Cabeau Evolutions and it was a game changer. It made me sleep much more comfortably. It made sure my head didn't touch the back of my pillows or any part of the headboard that I had on my bed. And if you're considering getting a hair transplant, getting that would be very ideal. The next thing that I absolutely hated after a hair transplant was washing my head on my own. After your surgery, the clinics usually call you back in to get a head wash and they clean up all the post-surgical blood that's dripping on your head, as well as add some moisturizer and then shampoo it all out. It's great that they're able to do that, and it is quite relieving that they know what they're doing and they're teaching you along the way. But the moment you get home and you just have to do it on your own, that is definitely a struggle because there's nobody there to really show you instructions on how to do it and what's the best way to do it and what are the right products to use. So that's one thing that I absolutely hated throughout the entire process. You have to wash your head like this at least until the 12th day where you have to remove your scabs, but up until then you have to be very careful with how you apply the water pressure, as well as how you apply your moisturizer and shampoos. I made a full video showcasing exactly how to do that. If you guys need any help and guidance, be sure to check that video out because it is packed with a lot of details and a lot of good information for anyone who wants to know how to wash their hair after a hair transplant. A very common irritation that I had of my hair transplant was the constant itching. For at least the first 2 months, you will want that urge to scratch your head as much as you can, but honestly, you should not be doing that at all. If you do want to scratch your head, the best way to do it is by using your index finger and actually rubbing it onto your hair rather than actually scratching it with your fingernails. Another good tip is to always make sure your fingernails are cut, because if you don't, you will most likely scratch out either a follicle on your hair or even some sort of skin on the donor area, which is not what we want at all. Hand in hand with this is the shedding that comes along with it. So obviously the more you touch your hair, the more hairs will actually come out and shed on your head. This is a stage where we cannot run away from. It just will happen and it sucks, not gonna lie, but we have to go through it. It is basically called the ugly duckling phase, and this is when the shedding mostly happens and we basically all look terrible. Very terrible. It was not one of my favorite stages of the hair transplant, and the fact that I had to go through it twice was just not an ideal situation. But over time, you just gotta trust that process and your hair will outgrow that ugly duckling phase. The next thing that I do talk about a lot on my channel is the aftercare that I take during my recovery phase and throughout this entire hair transplant journey. You guys see me talking about it every month in my monthly updates, but the truth is that it is also the most annoying thing to constantly keep up with. I'll be very honest and truthful. The fact that you have to remember taking these things every morning and every evening is a task and a half, but there have been days that I've forgotten about it, and it does worry me sometimes thinking that if I missed a dosage today, is my hair going to fall out tomorrow? These type of things do always creep up in my mind, but I think it's a long game type of situation where even if you do skip a day or two, it's not going to deteriorate your result on the spot. But if you keep consistent with it, let's say you do miss a day, just make it a point to remember the following day. I also take a lot of different products. I take minoxidil, I take finasteride, I take a bunch of different vitamins. I even use different types of shampoos, even have some different types of serums and hair oils. I take the whole 9 yards. I do everything. I do as much as I can. But of course, taking so many things means I have to keep to a good routine. And that is one thing that I wish was more streamlined, but you know, it is what it is. If you want to keep your hair, you got to follow a routine. Touching on the aftercare, one of the main ones is finasteride. Now, a lot of people say that you don't need finasteride even after a hair transplant because people believe that a hair transplant is a one-step fix-all situation, but that's not the truth. Finasteride is still really important to take because even after your hair transplant, especially if you've only done a little bit in maybe your frontal areas or a little bit on your crown, the rest of your hair on your head is still prone to DHT and it still can be lost in the future. DHT is what they call dihydrotestosterone. It is very prominent in our scalps and finasteride helps to combat that. Of course, there are side effects to finasteride, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like taking it. Like, for example, it reduces your libido and it causes erectile dysfunction. If you are feeling those type of symptoms, you should definitely not continue it. Within 2 weeks, your body will be back to how it was. But if you are like me and have never received any types of side effects, it would be beneficial for you moving forward and keeping the remaining of your hair in order to avoid a second hair transplant. It is one of the things that is irritating as well because you have to take it if you want to keep the rest of your hair. Of course, it is your choice, and if you don't want to do it, it's totally fine, but you'll have to try to find other ways to maintain your existing hairs, and hopefully they don't fall out either in the future. Another thing that I really hated after my hair transplant was that there was very minimal support from the clinics after getting the surgery done. Although the clinics do still reach out and ask you about how you're actually doing, how's the monthly progress, every 3, 6, and then 9 months, and even the final 1 year mark, and ask you to send in photos of your progress. Although they do all of that, it doesn't feel very personal, especially after you've gone through this surgery and you know exactly what you just went through. It's a little tough to believe that they are there by your side 24/7, which is something I wish I had, but you know, it just never happened for me. But that's kind of why I've done my own one-on-one personal consultation service with you guys if you guys need any type of assistance on your end. I've actually spoken to so many people already who have already gotten a hair transplant or people who have even considered getting a hair transplant. They've reached out to me and we've had conversations about their own procedure, and I was able to help guide them along the way because, again, I've gone through it twice now and I know exactly what to do and what not to do and what products work and what do not. So if you are interested in getting some sort of help even after your hair transplant, do consider booking some time with me. There's a link in the description below. I'm mostly available at any time, so don't hesitate to book some time with me and I'll be that support for you because I know how important it is for someone who's just gotten a hair transplant. Another thing that I actually hate about my current hair transplant is getting a haircut. Although getting a haircut doesn't sound that crazy, but every time I go to the barber this time, I always have this little anxiety feeling that is it going to cut all the wrong areas of my hair? And will my hair still look as good as it is currently? I always have those little thoughts in my head, and that's why it's really important to find a good barber as well who understands your situation. Let them know that you've gotten a hair transplant and that you want to have it look a certain way, or maybe don't cut these particular areas on your hair to avoid having the scarring being shown too obviously. Now, if you've gotten an FUE hair transplant, there's less likely chance of showing big scarring, but if you've gotten an FUT hair transplant, you might have a scar at the back of your head and you might not want that to be shown. The point of getting a good barber is to see if they can actually help hide those scars as well. Another good tip is to keep your hair long on the sides and the back, and you will not see any scarring at all. That's what I do. I've had 10,000 grafts extracted in total from my head, from my donor area, and placed onto my hairline and mid-scalp and crown. So the fact that I can still cover up my donor area very well without seeing any type of scarring is amazing. It's definitely difficult and annoying at the beginning after you get a hair transplant to find the right barber, but once you do, it should be smooth sailing from there. I didn't really like the fact that I had to go back for a second hair transplant because I wanted to get everything done in one sitting. But unfortunately, due to my case, I had to go back for a second one because the doctors were not able to extract that many grafts on my first sitting. The fact that I had to go back again was such a daunting thought in my mind because that's not what I wanted to do. And that's what I absolutely hated about it, because the fact that I had to commit another year of my life of shaving my head off, going into an everyday routine, maintaining my hair and praying that I see some sort of hair growth on my head, But as soon as I got it done, I knew for a fact on what I had to do because I had the experience of having it done the first time around. Although I did initially not enjoy the thought of having a second hair transplant, I think over time, getting it done and being able to showcase that and help others has made it a significantly better experience. The last thing that I hate about my hair transplant was getting back home from Turkey. Chances are, if you have gotten a hair transplant, you've probably gotten it from a different country or even from Turkey itself. It's very common for a lot of people to go there because a lot of hair transplant surgeries are much more affordable in those countries and cities. Getting home after that is definitely a struggle because you don't realize how much of post-trauma that you're actually in after a surgery until you get on that plane and you're on the way home. For me, again, it was a little nerve-wracking just getting to the airport and then getting onto that plane. But one good thing about this entire process was that you can see tons of people with the same exact situation as you. There are people who have gone for their own hair transplants, and there are people who have gone for maybe some nose jobs or some sort of cosmetic surgery. It made me feel a little more comforting throughout the process of getting home. But of course, when you actually get back to your own home country, it is also a little nerve-wracking because you'll have a lot of eyes on you, but it's part of the process. At the end of the day, it's not going to affect that person's life, and it should not affect yours either, because in the future, you will get your hair back without worrying about anyone looking at it at the time. I know that I have been going on a rant about how much I hate my hair transplant, but like I said, in all honesty, I've absolutely loved the fact that I went twice and I got it done because I've got so much hair on my head right now and I cannot be more ecstatic about it. I've gotten to a point where I think less and less about it, and I'm so happy at the fact that I'm able to brush my hair and style it, have the confidence to be able to go out without wearing a hat anymore. Although I have been hating on a hair transplant today, but I think in the long run, after you get through those hurdles of the things that do happen during a hair transplant procedure, you will not regret your decision of getting it done. Alright, I think that's all from me for today. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out some of the other videos that I posted. They're all very useful and a lot of good information out there about a hair transplant. I'll catch you guys soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.